Imagine you are at a coffee shop. You're in London or maybe New York. You've been practicing your English for months. You feel ready. You walk up to the counter and the barista looks at you and says, "What can I get for you today?" Suddenly, your brain feels like a busy office. You hear the English words, you translate them into your own language, you think of the answer in your language, and then you try to translate that answer back into English.
And by the time you're ready to speak, 5 seconds have passed. The barista is looking at the next person in line. You feel slow. You feel heavy.
Exactly. It's that heavy feeling, like you are carrying a big dictionary in your backpack and you have to open it for every single word.
I know that feeling so well. It's exhausting. It's not just about the words. It's about the energy it takes to do that math in your head.
Welcome to Pod Studio. I'm Emma.
And I'm Alex. Today, we are talking about that specific heavy feeling. We're talking about how to stop translating in your head and how to start thinking in English naturally.
This isn't about being perfect. It's about feeling lighter when you speak. It's about making English feel less like a school subject and more like, well, just a part of your day. So if you're at home or walking the dog or maybe commuting to work, just relax. You don't need a notebook. Just listen.
Before we start, if you want more fun English podcasts like this, hit the subscribe button right now and join our English learning family.
It really helps us grow.
You know, Emma, I was thinking about this yesterday. I was trying to learn a bit of Italian because I want to go there next summer. And I caught myself doing exactly what we're talking about. I saw a picture of a cat, and in my head I said, cat, okay, gatto. I was building a bridge between the two words.
That bridge is the problem, isn't it?
It is, because as long as the bridge is there, you always have to cross it. You never actually live on the other side.
That's a good way to put it. Living on the other side. When I first moved abroad, I was obsessed with being accurate. In other words, I wanted my grammar to be perfect. I would pause for a long time to make sure I used the right tense. But I realized that while I was being accurate, I wasn't being fluent.
Wait, let's talk about those two words, accurate and fluent.
Right. Accurate means being correct. No mistakes, like a math problem. But fluent means flowing, like water in a river. When you translate in your head, you are trying to be accurate, but you stop the flow.
I think a lot of people are afraid of the empty space, that moment of silence where you aren't saying anything because you're searching for the word. It feels like a long time, but it's actually just a second or two.
It feels like an eternity, but you're right. I think we translate because we want to feel safe. If I can find the word in my own language first, I feel like I know what I'm doing. If I try to think directly in English, it feels like I'm walking in the dark.
But that's the secret, isn't it? You have to get comfortable with the dark for a little while. I remember a friend told me that she started labeling her life. Not with real labels, but in her mind.
Labeling? Like putting stickers on things?
Sort of. She decided that for 1 hour a day, she wouldn't look at anything and think of the name in her native language. She would look at a window and just think, window. She wouldn't say window means ventana. She would just look at the glass in the frame and think, window.
I like that. It's like you're cutting out the middleman. The middleman is your first language. You are connecting the object directly to the English word.
Exactly. It sounds simple, but it's actually quite hard to do at first. Your brain wants to go back to what is easy. It's lazy.
Our brains are definitely lazy. They want to use the paths they already built, but you can build new paths. I used to do this thing called the narrative of the day. That means I would talk to myself in my head about what I was doing, but in very simple English.
Like a movie narrator?
Exactly. I'd be in the kitchen and I'd think, okay, I am making coffee now. The water is hot. Where is the milk? Ah, here is the milk.
Did you do that out loud?
Sometimes, if I was alone. If I was on the bus, I did it silently. The bus is late. It is raining. That man has a blue umbrella.
That's actually a great tip for B1 learners, because you aren't trying to explain the meaning of life. You're just using the words you already know. You're practicing the habit of English.
Yes, the habit, that's the key word. But Alex, I have to ask, do you think some people enjoy the translation? Like they feel it helps them understand the structure better?
I think so, but it's a trap. It's a safety net. In other words, it's something that catches you if you fall, but it also stops you from flying. If you always rely on translation, you never learn the logic of English.
The logic. You mean how the sentences are built?
Yeah, every language has a different vibe. For example, some languages are very direct, some are very poetic. English has its own rhythm. If you translate from your language, you might be using English words, but you're using your language's rhythm. It sounds clunky.
Clunky. That's a great word. It means something that doesn't move smoothly, like an old car.
Right. A clunky conversation is one there are lots of ums and ems because the gears are grinding together.
I had a student once who told me she felt guilty if she didn't translate. She felt like she was guessing instead of knowing.
That's interesting. Guilt is a big part of learning a language, isn't it? We feel like we have to work hard for it to count. If it feels easy or natural, we think we aren't learning.
But language should eventually feel easy. That's the whole point. We want to reach a place where the words just appear.
I think we should talk about the internal monologue. Most people have a voice in their head that talks to them all day. I'm hungry. I need to call my mom. I forgot my keys. For a learner, that voice is almost always in their native language.
Changing that voice is the hardest part. It's like trying to change the color of your eyes.
Maybe not that hard, but it does take effort. I think the mistake people make is trying to do too much. They think, okay, from now on, I will only think in English. And after 10 minutes, their head hurts and they give up.
It's better to do micro moments. For example, when you wake up, think of 3 things you have to do today, but only in English. Shower, work, grocery store. That's it.
I agree. Small wins are better than big failures. But what about when you hit a wall? You know, when you're trying to think in English and you realize you don't know the word for stapler or faucet?
Oh, I love those moments now, but I used to hate them. Now I tell people, don't go to your dictionary immediately. Try to describe it in English in your head. If you don't know faucet, think the thing in the kitchen where the water comes out.
That's a great skill. We call that circumlocution, but that's a very fancy word. Let's just call it talking around the word.
Talking around it. I like that. It keeps your brain in English mode. The moment you open a translator app, your brain switches back to your first language. The English mode turns off.
It's like a light switch. You want to keep the light on as long as possible. Even if you're stumbling over your feet in the room, keep the light on.
Do you think listening to podcasts like this helps with that?
I think it's one of the best ways. Because when you listen to a natural conversation, you aren't looking at a list of words. You're hearing how the words live together. You start to pick up chunks.
Chunks. You mean groups of words.
Exactly. Like, I was wondering if, or by the way, or to be honest. You don't translate those word by word. You just learn the chunk as one piece of meaning.
That's so important. If you translate by the way, word by word into another language, it usually makes no sense at all. It might mean near the road.
Near the road, I want to tell you something. That would be very confusing.
But that's what happens when we translate in our heads. We produce these strange sentences that are technically English words but don't feel like English.
I think there's a tension here, though. A lot of learners feel like if they don't translate, they're losing their identity. Their native language is their home. English feels like a hotel.
That's deep, Alex, but it's true. When you speak a second language, you sometimes feel like a simpler version of yourself. You can't be as funny or as smart because your tools are smaller.
Yes, and that's why people translate. They want to say the smart thing they thought of in their own language. But my advice is be okay with being simple for a while. It's better to be simple and fluent than to be smart and stuck.
Simple and fluent. I'm going to write that down. Well, I'll remember it. I think that's the goal for the A2 and B1 level. Just get the message across.
Let's talk about emotions. Have you ever noticed that it's easier to think in English when you're angry or excited?
Oh, absolutely. When I'm frustrated, I sometimes yell in English. Are you serious? It just comes out.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's because when we have strong emotions, our filters go away. We don't have time to translate. The brain just grabs the nearest tool. If you've heard "Are you serious?" 100 times in movies, it's right there at the top of your brain.
So the lesson is, we need to make English words the nearest tools. We do that through repetition and by creating an English environment, even if we don't live in an English-speaking country.
I tell my friends to change their phone settings to English. It's annoying for the first 2 days, but then you stop thinking about it. You don't translate the word settings anymore. You just know that icon means that word.
It's about building those direct connections. No bridges, just the thing and the word.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about the internal monologue. I tried to do that yesterday while I was cleaning my apartment. I realized that my brain kept trying to switch back to my native language every time I got bored.
Boredom is the enemy of focus. When you're doing something automatic, like washing dishes or folding clothes, your brain goes into autopilot.
Autopilot. That means you're doing something without thinking.
Right, and your autopilot is programmed in your first language, so you have to manually switch it. You have to say, no, for the next 10 minutes, we are washing the dishes in English.
It sounds like a lot of work. Does it ever get easier?
It does. It's like a muscle. The first time you go to the gym, you can't lift the heavy weights. Your muscles hurt. You want to go home. But after a month, you don't even think about it. You just go and do it.
I think another thing that helps is passive listening. Just having English in the background while you do other things. You're not studying, you're just letting the sounds wash over you.
I agree, but I think you have to be careful. Some people do too much passive listening and they never actually engage.
Engage. In other words, they aren't really paying attention.
Right. It's like background music. You hear it, but you don't know the lyrics. I think the best way to start thinking in English is a mix. Active moments where you narrate your life and passive moments where you just enjoy the sound of the language.
And maybe most importantly, being kind to yourself.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Because you will translate. Even after years of learning, I still translate sometimes, especially when I'm tired or stressed. If I have to do something difficult, like talk to a doctor or a lawyer, my brain wants that safety net back.
And that's okay. It's not a failure. It's just your brain trying to protect you. The goal isn't to delete your first language. It's to let English have its own space.
I like that. A room of its own.
Exactly. You have a room for your native language, which is big and comfortable, and you're building a new room for English. At first, the English room is small. It only has a chair and a lamp. But every time you think in English, you're adding furniture.
That's a lovely image. A chair, a lamp, maybe a little rug.
Exactly. And eventually, you'll want to spend more time in that room because it's cozy. You won't feel like you're visiting. You'll feel like you're home.
I think for a lot of our listeners, the bridge between the two rooms is still very long. They are spending a lot of time walking back and forth.
If you're listening to this and you feel like you're always on that bridge, don't worry. Just try to stay in the English room for 5 minutes longer today than you did yesterday.
Even if you just look at your breakfast and think, this is a piece of toast. The toast is brown. I like jam.
It sounds silly, but it works. It's the foundation.
Alex, do you think people worry too much about slang? You know, those very informal words that people use in movies?
Oh, definitely. People think they need to know all the cool words to think like a native speaker. But native speakers don't think in slang. We think in very basic, clear concepts.
That's true. Most of my thoughts are just, where are my socks? And I want pizza.
Exactly. Where are my socks is the same in any language. You don't need a PhD in English to think that. You just need the word for socks and the structure for a question.
So the message for today is start small, be consistent, and don't be afraid of the silence.
And remember that the goal is communication, not perfection. If you can get your point across without feeling like your brain is melting, you're winning.
Brain melting. We don't want any melted brains here.
No, definitely not. We want cool, calm, and collected brains.
Collected. That's a nice word. It means feeling organized and in control.
It's a good feeling to have when you're speaking a language.
It really is. I hope this conversation helped you feel a little more collected today. Maybe you can try to think of one thing you learned from this episode directly in English right after you finish listening.
Just one sentence. Don't translate it. Just let it sit there in your mind.
It's been so good talking about this. It's a journey, isn't it?
It's not a race.
It's a very long walk in a very beautiful park.
With a few hills.
Maybe a few hills, yes, but the view is worth it.
Thank you for joining us at Pod Studio today. It's always a pleasure to have you here in our English learning family.
We really appreciate you spending your time with us. It's the most valuable thing you have.
If you enjoyed this, maybe you can listen to it again tomorrow while you're doing the dishes. See if you can catch a few more chunks.
Great idea. Take it slow, keep it simple, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.
Goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.